Aloha everyone and welcome aboard the Four Winds 2 Ocean Adventure. Now today is a beautiful morning. It is June 8th, 2005 and this is Wednesday morning and we're about to head out to one of Maui's top dive and snorkel destinations called Molokini Crater. Now we're about to board the boat right here in Mo'alaia Harbor, also known as one of the windiest harbors in the world, sitting right in between the two volcanoes that make up Maui, that West Maui Mountain and Haleakala. Now we're gonna step on board, stow away our gear, and grab ourselves some hot Kona coffee and fresh island fruit before getting underway. Now as we leave the harbor, we're also going to be setting out those fishing lines in hopes of catching some of the pelagic fish that swim in the open waters. And those are fish such as your ahi, your mahi-mahi, as well as your ono, which is in the mackerel family. Now we're also going to get a chance to meet all of those smiling faces out there today. Got people visiting from all over the country. And by the way, a big congratulations goes to all of those who are celebrating. And I'm talking about your honeymooners, your anniversaries, as well as those birthdays out there. Now as we get underway and we look behind us, we can see that West Maui Mountain rising up in the distance. That is our extinct volcano that rises almost 6,000 feet above the ocean. Now that's also known as Hale Mehina, House of the Moon. And that's been carved for thousands of years into high ridges and lush valleys and gets about 400 inches of rainfall a year in its interior, making it the second wettest spot in the world. And of course, with all that rainfall, we get the rainbows, and we are the Rainbow State out here in Hawaii. You can tell that just from driving around our island. You'll see all of those rainbows on our license plates. And there's a shot of Hale Mehina behind us. Another volcano to make up Maui, and this one's called Haleakala, House of the Sun, rising 10,000 feet above the ocean. Now Haleakala holds our tropical rainforest of Hana, as well as our redwood forest of Poli Poli. Now if we look down the leeward slope of Haleakala, we'll notice a lot of flat-top ridges that go all the way down that leeward side. Now those ridges are actually cinder cones, weak areas in the volcanic surface that at one point in time erupted with gas and lava. Now those cinder cones continue all the way to the water's edge and even underneath the water. And the tallest of them is Molokini Crater. That is the actual air vent to Haleakala when that volcano was erupting. Now, Molokini's windward side has eroded into the ocean, leaving us that crescent-shaped crater. And we're going to pull right on into that inside curve, and that's where we're going to be tying up the boat and diving in. Now, Molokini's backside is also known as one of the top 10 dives in the world. It's a sheer wall that drops down about 400 feet, and that's where we see many of our larger species of pelagic animals, as well as our rays, our sharks, and of course many of our cetaceans like our dolphins and our whales. Now, to the right-hand side of Molokini crater is the island of Koho Alave, and that's the island that the military used as a bombing target for about 50 years. Now, they stopped bombing it 14 years ago, and now have spent a great deal of time, effort, and money on its cleanup. They've made sure that every square inch of land went through about 3 different military metal detectors to make sure that all ordnance had been exploded, so that one day it would be safe to walk on. And now that day has come, and they are handing it back to the Hawaiians who will use it for ceremonial purposes. Now, what finally went over that battle for that island is they found artifacts, petroglyphs, and even burial sites from the old sacred Hawaiian days. Lots of Hawaiian history and mana, which is our spiritual energy when we pass. And now we're getting closer and closer to Molokini crater. So we're going to pull in, tie up, and dive under. And we're going to get a chance to see what those fish see down below. And it looks like the first thing that we encountered was in what we call a reverse aquarium. This time we put you critters on the inside and we let the fish have the free roam of the outside world. Now, most of the animals that we're going to find out here in Hawaii are found only in our islands. Now, we get most of our marine life originating in the Indo-Pacific, and they get here through currents. And only those animals with an extremely long larval stage were able to make it over the 2,000-mile journey to our archipelago in order to reproduce. Now, because of this, where closer island chains will have thousands of species of marine life, we only have 450. But out of those species, many of them have interbreeded throughout the centuries, leaving us 32%, which are completely endemic and found nowhere else in the world. Here we have a pair of threadfin butterflies. Now, these butterflies are usually found paired up on the Hawaiian Reef, and that's because they mate for life. So where you find one, the other one isn't too far off. Now, also with many of those butterfly fish, you'll find that black dot towards the back half of the body. That's called a false eye spot, and that's there to hopefully confuse a predator into mistaking it for the real eye, and also mistaking what direction they're going to dart in, giving them a little bit of a head start on their enemies. Now, we also have that rare species of snorkel fish, very amphibious creature, spending most of its time on land, but every now and then we see them schooling in large numbers here at the crater and around the coastline of Maui. Big glassy eyes and large webbed feet. Followed up by what we call the surgeonfish, and this one's called the orange spine. And that last one we saw with the long streamers coming off of the tail, that was the male. Now, these animals have the most prominent spines of the entire surgeonfish family. Definitely not something you want to run into by accident. That's actually how surgeonfish get their name. They say that those spines are as sharp as a surgeon's scalpel. That's why you always want to give an animal out in nature its space, because you never know what Mother Nature has given that animal in order to defend itself.
Our love for you forever will remain.
And here we have what's called a female parrotfish. Now these parrotfish are pretty interesting. They live in haremic societies, which means that one male will take care of a harem of females. Now if something should happen to this male, it is the largest and the strongest of the females who will change her sex over, become what's called the super male, and she'll take over the harem. And she's going to ensure its survival. And there we have a pink-tailed triggerfish.
Precious flower in the misty rain. Your lonely eyes forever will remain falling. Only falling.
Now here we have one of my favorite animals here on the shallow reef. This is known as our octopus. Now there are hundreds of octopus here at Molokini Crater, but they're definitely a lot harder to find. And that's because these animals have no bones in their bodies, so they can fit into even the smallest of spaces on our shallow reef. Now when we usually do spot them, it's when they're on the move. The octopus is jet propelled, meaning it can actually intake water into a specialized chamber within its body and then force it out again, shooting it forward in short bursts of speed. Now as it moves across that reef, it is the master of camouflage. It'll have not only several different color changes, but several different texture changes as well as it blends in with its surrounding environment. Now when threatened, this animal will put out what's called an ink screen, which is that black cloud of ink in the water. Now not only will that block our view to that animal and give him a chance to escape, but for many other animals it's also going to block their sense of smell, which is what many animals hunt with in the ocean.
There's a rain, a wind-blown rain,
Now here at Molokini Crater, above the surface of the water is a bird sanctuary, home of the Eva, otherwise known as the greater frigate bird, with a giant wingspan of about 5 or 6 feet. Now below the surface of the water is a marine preserve. So these fish are pretty used to the boats coming by and dropping snorkelers in the water and knowing that they will not be harmed. And so therefore, unlike viewing most wildlife in their natural habitat, here at the crater we get the rare opportunity to get really close to these animals in their natural home.
Children sing, rain go away, come another day.
And here we have another sturgeon fish. This one's called the yellow tang. And if you look close towards the tail, you'll see the little white spine. And here we have our first snuba group of the day. Great way of experiencing that ocean environment. No longer are you an observer from above. You're now down a little bit lower, being right at eye level with many of those animals that camouflage within the reef. You're also seeing many of those nocturnal animals, which are the ones that come out at night. Many of these include our white and black tip reef sharks, as well as our grays. Of course, many of our eels, especially ones such as our white-mouthed moray eel. Every now and then one will wake up during the daytime and cruise the shallow reef, and we get that opportunity to take a peek at them during the daytime, but most of the time they're just resting. And also many of your crustaceans, your lobster, shrimps, and crabs, those are all animals that come out at night. That's why you don't see them during the daytime.
Island rain, called by name.
Now, our scuba group today was led by Chet. He is our dive instructor, and he always does a great job of making sure that everybody feels comfortable and shows them a great tour of that shallow reef.
They call the island rain. A fine and wind-blown rain.
Now I'm going to throw in a little something extra for you today, because before the end of our trip, we're going to see one of these animals, which is one of our green sea turtles. Now, these green sea turtles are once in our endangered species list because not only did we hunt them almost to the brink of extinction, but they also felt the direct effects of our fertilizers that we used in our sugarcane as well as our pineapple fields. And unfortunately, many of our green sea turtles out here in the Hawaiian Islands do develop cancerous tumors, and you're going to see that as you snorkel about our reefs. Now, thanks to many of our environmentalists, our marine biologists, and other researchers out here in the islands, many of these animals have been taken out of our waters, the tumors removed, and then later released back into the wild. And because of this, we've slowly seen not only their lifespans increase, but their numbers as well. In fact, they've increased so dramatically that we've been able to move them back off of that endangered species list and onto the protected again, and that's where we want them to stay. That's why we want to give them lots of room when they're coming up for a breath of air, because we want them to take that breath, and of course, many more in the future. And you can see by this example alone how much we affect our world of nature around us, not only in its destruction, but in its survival as well. And here we have an animal called the yellowtail chorus. This is part of the wrasse family. And these wrasse have 3 different stages in life in which they can look like 3 completely different fish. Now, during each stage in life, some will transform their body markings, others will transform their body shape, and still others will be born female and later turn male. Now, this particular one looks just like Finding Nemo when it's a juvenile. And as you can see, it does quite a transformation to its adult stage. Changes all of its body markings. And here we have a fish called the blue striped snapper, otherwise known in Hawaiian as the ta'ape. Now, this animal is not endemic to the Hawaiian Islands. It was brought over to be raised as a food source in our fish ponds. Now, later on, it was introduced to our shallow reef and now can be found on every reef out here in Hawaii. And we even had some free divers today, people willing to hold their breath and dive down on that single breath of air. And now here we have what's called a cornet fish, very similar to that trumpet fish. And these animals are actually ambush hunters. They even sometimes align themselves up against a diver's body in order to sneak up on their prey. These animals, sometimes you can even tell what kind of mood they're in. This particular one gets a very speckled pattern when it gets agitated. That other fish that swam by with the orange spines, the orange spine surgeonfish, that one gets a bright yellow dot when it gets agitated right on its forehead. Now this is a fish that we cannot leave out. This one in the background, that's called our humu humu nuku nuku apua'a. And that's basically a fish that grunts like a pig. That is our Hawaiian state fish. And that actually translates to fish that grunts like a pig. And in the Hawaiian belief, they believed in many gods. It was a multi-deity belief system. And each god had both a land form as well as an ocean form. Now there was one god that came on land as the boar and in the ocean as the humu humu. And last but not least, we have our fish that we all know and love from that movie Finding Nemo, the fish named Gil. This is what's known as a Moorish idol. Now this is the only animal out here in Hawaii that has no other known members in its family. It is completely alone in its family group. This looks very similar to that angelfish that we all know and love in our freshwater aquariums at home, but it is not related. This is a saltwater animal, and the angelfish is a freshwater animal. Now, we do have a family group that's called angelfish in the ocean, but it's definitely a very, very different kind of fish. Here's one of our crew members, that's Tom, and he's free diving. As you can see, they're very good at free diving, and he's running out of air. That's why he was going straight to the surface. Now, last but not least, we're going to take a quick peek at our second snooper group of the day before heading back to the boat. And this is wrapping up our underwater time here at Molokini Crater. Definitely have our people that are comfortable in the water. Here are our mermen and mermaids down here. Now this scuba diving is also a great way of feeling completely weightless and without gravity. This is called neutral buoyancy. You're neither floating nor sinking. Somewhere right in the middle. And now we're going to say hello to that raccoon butterfly on our way back to the boat. And since that's finishing up our underwater time, we're going to slowly start making our ascent towards the surface, then climb back on board the Four Winds 2. Now, once back on top, we're going to grab ourselves a bite to eat. We've got hot dogs, hamburgers, and even barbecue chicken as we enjoy the rest of the afternoon playing in that Maui sunshine, enjoying all of this great weather, sliding down the slide, and of course doing our last-minute snorkeling before heading back to Maalaea Harbor. Now, I just want to thank everybody for coming out here and joining us on the Four Winds 2. And out of all the boats and activities to choose from, I just want to say, hey, thanks for spending your afternoon playing with us out here on the Four Winds 2. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day and afternoon and vacation out here in Hawaii, as well as here on Maui. Aloha and mahalo.